Welcome to Unsheltered Conversations, a HomeAid America podcast where we explore the stories behind housing, hope, and the people who make them possible. I'm Scott Larson, and today's episode is a special one as we close out the year, as we reflect on the past 36 years of HomeAid's mission and look to the future of what lies ahead. HomeAid began in 1989 as a bold idea in Orange County, California. What if the building industry could use its expertise, materials, and compassion to build housing for people experiencing homelessness? That idea grew, evolved, and spread, eventually becoming HomeAid America in 1995 and expanded to affiliates across the country. To talk about this journey, we're joined today by someone who is there at the beginning and whose fingerprints are still all over the organization, Mike Lennon, the founding staff member of HomeAid Orange County and the founding CEO of HomeAid America. We're also joined by someone who has lived that history, stewarded it, and continues to carry it forward every day, Gina Cunningham, the executive director of HomeAid Orange County, Los Angeles, who began working with Mike back in 1997. This conversation is about history, relationships, purpose, and a future we're building together. Mike, Gina, welcome to the podcast, and it is so great to see both of you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott, for having
Great
me.
to be here.
So, Mike, let's go back to the beginning. It's 1989, and homelessness is rising dramatically in Orange County. And you're working with the Orange County building industry. What and how did the idea for HomeAid come about, and what were those early days like 36 years ago?
Yeah, so there were actually two things happening in Orange County. There was a rise in homelessness, and there was also a building boom. And one of the things that happened with the building boom is that there was a natural, as happens around the country in different places, a resistance against more expansion of buildings. So we met a lot of resistance, and we realized that we're a great industry. We build people's dreams. That's what the building industry does. And the building industry birthed HomeAid as a compassionate response to helping those that were unhoused. So we sat down, we thought about it, a number of builders and other associate members of the Building Industry Association of Orange County, and we said, well, what could we do what could we do to help and contribute as an industry? Why not housing? Because that's what we do. That's what we provide, for people. At any rate, so we had a conversation with HUD, local HUD organization, Housing and Urban Development office there, and they said we need transitional housing. That was housing at that time, which was 6 to 18 months, so people could go from homelessness to self-sufficiency, getting the life skills, job skills, et cetera, to do that. Okay. Then we went to our 5 county supervisors at that time, and we said, "This is what we can do. This is what we feel we can do. Would you give us a good provider, that is to say, a care provider that works with homeless families, individuals, children, whatever, and would you give us each?" We asked each one to give us a program that we could support, and those, after the farmhouse project, those were our first 5 projects for HomeAid in Orange County. The farmhouse project, actually, the Irvine Farmhouse Project, was our beginning of everything. And my kids were out there in the trenches and digging, and other families and kids. We didn't really know what the formula for HomeAid was. And I remember I had a conversation, and I was the director of community affairs for the Building Industry Association of Orange County at that time, which means I had programs and golf tournaments and all this other stuff. And I would always ask people for money. So we were doing this project, farmhouse renovation project, that would house several families. And the Irvine Company donated the land and the facilities, and then we were put together a team to build it. So I remember asking an electrician, "Hey, Frank, would you donate, $1,000 to help with this?" And he said, "Mike, you always ask for money. I'm not going to give you any money." And so, and then I said, "Well, would you do the electrical work on this?" And I'm not kidding. $6,000 later, he, with a smile, he had dug into these old walls in this farmhouse renovation effort and done all the work. And what we realized at that time is that when you ask people to do what they do for a living, they gladly give you more than you could ask for, because that's who they are.
Mhm.
And so from there, it went to After that, we went to, well, all of these trades work for a builder. And so for our first 5 projects, we identified a builder captain. And the builder captain was, we would take them out to the project, to the care provider, to the organization that we wanted them to help with, and said, this is who they are. They help women in crisis pregnancy in Orange, for example. And would you adopt this project, which means you do it for no profit, in-house or on the field, and we meet with your trade partners. And so you sell the builder and they capture the vision and adopt the project with their team. Then you have a meeting with all the trades, and the trade partners get the idea, and the builder calls them to the meeting. I couldn't call them to a meeting. They pay their, you know, paycheck on all the homes that they build. But what we discovered was when you present what the cause was, and the builder would say, we've adopted this. You don't have to do it to continue working for us. But if you do, we'd like you to do it at no cost or for free. And so I think we would build a $500,000 project for 200,000 cash, and we get 300,000 donated labor, materials, services, and the builder's overhead. And so that was kind of the first 5 projects. That was sort of the
Yep.
beginning of the HomeAid operation. And eventually you get to this critical mass of goodwill, I call it, where the builders, after a while, and you and Gina know this because you were both executive directors of HomeAid Orange County and now HomeAid America and in Orange County, LA, that you can't stop it.
Yep.
The builders
And
are
Mike, the beauty of that is that that model that you discovered with the farmhouses is the model today. I mean, it's expanded and it's varied, but we're going to talk about that a little bit. But who were the champions in those early days? Throw some names out so that way
yeah,
we
that's
can
so
we can do
hard.
some shout out.
I knew you're gonna ask me to do this, and I'm always afraid of leaving people out.
I
Probably
know
the
everyone was there at the founding. Gene and I both know that, but
Oh, there's still people
everyone
that
has it.
argue about it. Oh, I do.
Everyone was at the table. But who are a few? Just who are a
I
few people that really
think
struck
that
you?
the key builders, I remember this board meeting. We actually borrowed $40,000 from because I was paid 75% by the building industry and 25% by HomeAid, and then 50, then 75, 25. And so we borrowed $40,000 from the BIA, from the Building Industry Association of Orange County, and with a promise to pay back, which we did. And the Bill, I forget his name, the president of Shea Holmes was president of the BIA, but our advocates were Bart Hansen and Bob Albertson. Bob was Presley Homes, and Bart, remember his company?
Yeah, Shantana.
Fontana Homes. Yeah, so they were the 2 champions, and they stood up, as you can imagine, impassioned at this meeting, and they bludgeoned, in a positive way, the other builders into voting to loan us $40,000. We paid it back within a year, and that was how HomeAid got funded. But as we began to build, and as we began to see the progress, the industry slowly but surely adopted us into their hearts. And that's when I say HomeAid became a building industry charity, both locally and then more nationally.
Is that what you would say you might be most proud of?
I think what I'm most proud of is the just free flow of passion, and both of you have seen this as directors of HomeAid, the free flow of passion from really bright, hardworking people that give as much time. I'm thinking of Sonia Lister from Morrison and Forster, for example. These people, so much of their time, in addition to their regular job, and they do it for HomeAid, but they're doing it to change and transform lives. That's the secret of HomeAid, is this collaboration of a public, private, nonprofit sectors, right? But it's the core of it is the people in the building industry who, again, they build people's dreams. That's what they do anyway. And so now they just expand that to include, even beyond Habitat for Humanity, they include those that are temporarily homeless to get them back into a regular life.
So then, Mike, we're going to advance a couple years. 1995, HomeAid had proven itself in Orange County, but you and your leadership saw something bigger ahead and the potential for what became a national movement under HomeAid America. Walk us through that leap from HomeAid Orange County to then HomeAid America.
Well, before that, I'll tell you that Gina and I managed home in Orange County for a couple of years. And finally, I went to the board and said, look, if you want to do this bigger one, I'm your guy, but I can't stay and do this one. And that's thank God. And I want to say this right now that I haven't made all the right decisions over the years, but hiring you and Gina were two of the best decisions I made in my professional life. So I wanted to say that.
Well, thank
But
you.
anyway, yeah. So Ron DeFelice, who was the managing partner of Morrison Enforcer and on our board, as you know, for many years, he and I spent 1 year developing a handbook, an expansion handbook, and we interviewed the Boys and Girls Club, the Audubon Society, and Red Cross. We got represented because they had chapters. We wanted to say, how do you do chapters? And so we did that, and then we said, okay, this is how they do chapters. Then, and this is what I wanted to share. We identified 5 markers in a market that you had to have if you were going to do an expansion. This is what we did, and it got fine tuned after a while. But the first one was a building industry with a commitment to philanthropy and openness to the homemade concept. This is, we started in Sacramento, a healthy and willing stable of builders and, associate members, consultants, contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, a community, nonprofit homeless care providers, and local government with a need for HomeAid's mission and a willingness to partner, a potential source of revenue from the building industry and beyond in the philanthropic community, and a projection for long-term sustainability. And so we were looking for, if we're going to go to an area, they've got to have certain things in place, or potentially anyway. And so our first expansion then was at Sacramento, California, which is like another state, right, for most people, because it's 400 and some miles away. And so we went up there and we met with Bill Nemi. He was head of a building company. And there was a lot of skepticism. Our first builder captain was Richard Lewis of Lewis Homes. And they were saying, yeah, I don't know. So they flew down and we visited the Orange County Rescue Mission. Once they saw, not just understood the concept, but they understood the mission fulfillment and how it worked, they went back up there, and I would say that was the beginning of homemade expansion.
And Mike, those 5 elements, and we've fine-tuned a little bit of those, but those are still the basic principles and why, our newest affiliate, which will start right after the first of the year in the broader Philadelphia area, what we call Delaware Valley, those main principles are what we follow. It's the formula for success.
HomeAid America, in my view anyway, always is a servant and enabler. What we're there for is to help people be successful at the homemade mission, whether it's Orange County or Sacramento or Colorado or wherever. They have ownership of it, and I'm not kidding you. Over the years, Gina, I think you started the diapers stuff. Didn't you do that?
It was our Atlanta affiliate that actually started that, and then we brought it to Orange County, I think about 23 years
Yeah,
ago,
well,
I don't know how
anyway,
long
all
ago,
these
yeah.
things that evolved through homemade, and this is where I think, my probably one of my greatest achievements is hiring people smarter than me so that, the expansion really has a chance to work. And you two and the people you've inspired, the directors around the country, I'm amazed today, Scott, at where homemade is, and
Yeah.
very grateful to have had a small part in it.
Well, Mike, you hired Gina, and I was extremely grateful when I came a few years later. Gina, you joined in 1997,
Yes.
right in the middle of this incredible moment of
Yeah.
growth and maybe chaos. But Gina, what drew you to HomeAid? And what was it like stepping into the mission in that early era?
Well, I've learned now that I'm older, that I need purpose in life. And I was in my late 20s. Actually, I was 28 for one day, the day I started at HomeAid, and the next day I turned 29. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had only been a volunteer. I was very involved in YMCA work, but I knew I wanted a life of purpose and I wanted to go into nonprofit servant leadership, basically. And it was confusing because there were 2 things going on in that office. There was HomeAid Orange County, and then there was HomeAid America. And I already knew at that time, I believe, when Mike hired me, that it would be switching in the following year and that he would be leading HomeAid America and would be launching this across the nation. And so it was just exciting. I mean, what we do and what we still do today helps people have a home. And that has inspired me now for almost 29 years. And that is why I am still here doing this work.
Yeah.
And Gina, you learned so much in that era: fundraising,
Yeah.
affiliate development, project management, and just the philosophy of the building industry. Are there things that, every day we learn things at HomeAid. It's a new day every day. But what were some of those critical things in those early days that you felt I need to know this, or I need to figure this out because you work best backed into a corner and you're just going to make it happen. But were there some things that you really felt that affected you and that you learned in those early days?
Oh my gosh. I mean, and both of you were such inspirations in helping my growth as a leader through this entire process. I didn't know anything. I knew maybe how to build relationships, but I had to learn how important all those relationships are. And what Mike said earlier about the people we help, it's not just the people we help, it's the people we bring to the table to help the people that we help. And
Yeah.
I had to learn everything. I knew nothing about nonprofit management. I knew nothing about planning events or how we get fundraising off the table, how to grant write. I mean, everything I had to learn on the fly, which I'm still doing today as our executive director of HomeAid OCLA. I'm still learning things. And I think it's been inspiring to watch the growth and to learn every day still.
Yep. Hey, Mike, what do you remember about Gina in those early days?
Careful.
Careful.
I oh, I'm laughing with joy actually. Well, number 1, within a day and a half maybe, I knew she had amazing leadership potential because she was really in charge for the time she came in there. Sometimes we'd be talking about something, and after we got to know each other after a couple weeks, and she said, "Well, Mike Lennon, I don't think we can do it that way. I think this is." I was like, "Oh, okay." So, what do you
Whoa.
suggest? So there was this, and we had a few other people along the way, including Robin for a while. But we had, I would say, a naturally collaborative relationship, And yeah, I was the executive director, and I forget what title she had. Numerous responsibilities, but we had from the beginning a collaborative approach to things, and I really felt comfortable probably after the first day, working with Gina, and it's such a thrill for me today to see what she's evolved into, and you too, Scott. You know,
Well,
I
Mike,
gotta tell you, a story about when you got hired because Gina was already there, and then you came in later, and so you were in San Diego, right?
yes,
Working down there, and
for the American Red Cross. Yeah.
American Red Cross, very professional, and you came in, and so, I think it was our 3rd or 4th day, and I'm talking to Gina, he said, "Mike, I gotta talk to you for a minute." I said, "What is it?" She said, "It's about Scott." I said, "What?" She said, "He's worn a tie and a suit 4 days in a row. What are we gonna do about that?"
Well, literally, I walked in and Gina goes, "You gotta ditch the tie." You
Yeah.
know, yeah, yeah. The building industry, unless you're going to a funeral, you don't wear a tie. So, yeah, and
But
Gina, I
that was the
completely agree
uniform, man.
because
That was
yeah,
what you were used to, and,
yep.
but the thing I really, as I was thinking about this podcast today and about our relationships, right, the 3 of us, and I think the thing I'm most great, and we've been through the good, bad, the ugly, like any other organization, lots of stuff, right? But I think the thing I appreciate so much is that we're 3 strong people that gave each other leeway to grow and to change and to shift and to be transparent. And I think that leadership segue, like from me going to HomeAid America, I remember we had the same board of directors for like 2.5 years. And
Mhm.
then I said to the board, you got to decide if you want to be on the national board or the local board. And so people made a decision based on whether they were a national organization or not. And looking back now, it seems like it was really seamless. And whatever you were doing before for the down at San Diego Red Cross, that it was a seamless transition in the sense that you assimilated into the mission of what HomeAid was and where we were going. And so did Gina. And so our whole evolution, HomeAid America starting in '95, and then you coming in and taking over HomeAid Orange County. Yeah, just
So, Gina, what were some of the lessons that you learned from Mike that is still guiding your leadership today?
Well, I think it's exciting that I share the story of our beginnings the same. And so the lessons of how all of the people that started our organization and how important it is to connect with the industry and to let them do what they do best. And just really the importance of building relationships and keeping them close. I mean, we have a lot of people that have been involved in homemade for a very long time, and it's very important to them still. People like Julie Brinkerhoff. She was there in the beginning, Donna Hahn, Brenda Sylvie, some of those women that really drove the message forward. And quite frankly, when I talked to Mike really boldly once, I think Brenda Sylvie said, "You should fire her. She shouldn't talk to you like that."
Well, Mike, we're all glad that you did not fire her. And I'm grateful, Gina, at moments like
Yeah.
that I did not fire you as
Right.
well.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, God knew the energy this organization needed, and each one of us brought our respective stuff to it, you know?
Yep.
I totally believe that, sitting here today.
So, Mike, your formal time with HomeAid America came to a close in about 2006, but
Yes.
you've never left the mission and
No.
you've always stayed involved and you've been supportive and present.
Yep.
And recently, you returned just this last fall
Mm.
for, what I call a full circle moment, the
Yeah.
cutting of the ribbon at the La Vida Village
Yeah.
project in Orange. What did that moment mean to you to cut the ribbon of La Vida Village?
Well, Gina kept me from knowing what was going on the whole time there, when I came out there. I was thinking about that, and it was Scott, it was and Gina, and those of you listening to this, it was like full circle, and it was like deja vu, and what I saw there, and I bet I talked to 50 people that day because I like to do that. What was your role here? What did you do? And the over the top contributions, right, Gina?
Mhm.
That so many people made way beyond what was asked for. And some of the stuff they came up against, like even just weeks before it was gonna be dedicated, that needed to be solved. And that has been at the heart of HomeAid from the beginning, because home builders are problem solvers. Home builders are dream fulfillers. They build people's dreams, and they really do build for families. And all the people out there, the trade partners, subcontractors, suppliers, consultants, and I talked to a bunch of them that day, and the team. I met Gina's whole team that day, and that there's this common spirit of there's nothing that we can't or won't do to make this happen.
Yep.
And so I experienced that, but it was, like I said, a deja vu. It was like going back to, "Yep, this is homemade."
Yep.
And I wanna thank you. That was such a privilege and an honor, Scott.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you for inviting me
I'm
to be part of that day.
Yeah, I'm sorry I was not able to be there. But Gina, tell us a little bit about what La Vida Village is, because that's a very special project for you personally. And then what did it mean for you to have Mike there to cut the ribbon?
Yeah, La Vida Village is an affordable housing community in Old Town Orange, my hometown. I'm sitting in it right now. And what's amazing about that project is HomeAid was able to purchase 3 homes from the city, and then we restored them because it's in a historic district, and we added 3 ADUs to each backyard and have an entire community for mothers and children and seniors that can come together and have an affordable home to live in. Some of our moms are coming out of Casa Teresa. You mentioned that pregnant women's shelter that we built for before here in the city of Orange. Some of the moms have come from Casa Teresa. We have a senior that's actually a nurse at the hospital. She just can't find affordable housing and she's grateful to have a home. And what's amazing about that project is 2 home builders came together to complete it. And in the midst of that moment of completion, those 2 home builders merged. And today they're called Risewell Homes. And that project,
What a great name, just to pause on that.
I know,
Rise well. I think La
Risewell.
Vida Village maybe inspired them
It might
because
have.
they did rise well.
They did rise well, and that project is debt free. And I used to find that amazing when we would build projects for other nonprofits, and they would say, "This project is debt free." Well, that project, HomeAid owns, and it is debt free and will provide affordable housing for families and seniors for decades to come. So having Mike there, showing him that one of the ADUs was named in his honor, and then I didn't know who was going to cut the ribbon that day, but as we were standing there on the porch, I thought, "Of course it makes sense. Mike, will you do the honors?" And for me, that filled my heart with joy because that man hired me, took a chance on me, you kept me, and I am still here trying to help our unhoused neighbors. So
Yep.
Amen.
So that project has so much to it. And if anybody's in Southern California, and specifically Orange, they need to see it because
beautiful.
it's exactly what we do. Public-private partnership, the city of Orange, the builders, passion,
Mhm.
Gina, your drive to make it happen. And they're never easy, but you go there and you see why it was done. I firmly believe that as HomeAid, we've changed communities. We've changed the built environment. Those 3 homes were deteriorating before everyone's eyes, and it's on a busy street. And the fact that you've been able to revitalize not only those homes, but the neighbors, the neighborhood, and then ultimately the people that live there. And I have often said, we never know where someone comes from or where they're going to go. But
Yeah.
when they're in a homemade built community, it's a place of dignity and respect for them as a human. So
Amen.
I'm grateful, Gina, for your passion for that project specifically and the other things that you've done over the
Me
years.
too.
Do you
Me
remember
too.
when we first were approached by that project, Scott?
Oh, I do.
Forwarded
I
me
do.
the message from the city manager in Orange and said, "You might as well answer this call because you're going to have to be interim next year, and it'll be
Yep.
something you'll have
I
to
did.
handle."
I did. I got a call from the city manager and I said,
Mhm.
"Gina, I'm going on sabbatical. This is your deal.
And I
This is
looked at
your
these
thing."
homes and went, "Wow." They were falling apart, and knowing that they're in the historic district and that we cannot tear them down, it
Yeah.
actually made me excited that we could restore them because
Yep.
they deserve to be restored.
Yeah. So HomeAid's completing 36 years here in 2025, and soon we'll be at 40. Kind of crazy to think. And as I look to the future, there's key things from a national perspective. The expansion of more affiliates. There are housing market pressures that are out there. There's new national partnerships that we have. There's our ability to have stepped into disaster response like never before. And we're looking at data and leadership, some of the things, and then also succession and sustainability. Gina, when you look to the future, what do you see? What do you see for the vision for not only your affiliate, but all the affiliates across the country?
Well, I've had the pleasure to work for our very first affiliate and to watch it grow. And we have done things here that, aside from our Hawaii affiliate that has had to have fire response and they have grown and done really interesting projects, we need to just keep adding homes. And however we can do that is however we can do that. And I know here in Orange County, we bought a building and opened it up to be an emergency shelter for families. Now we have purchased 3 old homes in the city of Orange, and we are affordable housing builders that are providing homes to residents. We also built a multifamily building in Santa Ana for chronically homeless adults. And so, what I see in the future as we grow into Los Angeles, the numbers are daunting in LA. Over 75,000 people are experiencing homelessness. Nationally, that is the largest county with the most homeless in our entire country. And our board is really wants to get in there and start ticking away at some of those numbers. And so I can't even remember the question you asked me that I'm trying to
Yeah.
finish, but the future is building housing. We've been in a housing crisis, whether you are experiencing homelessness or you're a renter or a young couple trying to buy for the first time, and we need to provide people homes. It's not
Yep.
okay that there's 75,000 people without them.
Yeah.
Mike, what's your vision for the next generation? Your legacy clearly has been woven for the last 30 plus years, but what's your vision for the next generation of HomeAid?
I agree with Gina. I think we just need to keep doing the mission and build. I think though that as we have the leadership and Homemade OCLA does, and so does HomeAid America, and certainly Colorado and some of the other strong chapters, Sacramento, they do for their regions. But I think that overall, I think maybe raise the bar a little bit and expand the vision. And I'm thinking that maybe some more significant national collaborations and partnerships, would be helpful because I think Homemade is growing to that stature where and by the way, some of the vehicle for that could be the national builders and national associates, GE and other national suppliers that we work with. And so I think raising the bar, but keeping two things. One, the mission, of course, is to end homelessness and to help every single person that is homeless find a way from being homeless to having a home and having a life of hope ahead of them. Homelessness to self-sufficiency with jobs, housing, transportation, the other things that they need. But I think that having a time to maybe to the HomeAid core leadership team, HomeAid America and chapters, what does the future look like? That would be I think, a good consideration. And we all have a piece of that, right? But I just think raising the bar a little bit in terms of what we can believe about ourselves,
Yeah,
because we'll raise to it. We'll rise to it.
absolutely. And Mike, when I stepped in 2019, and I often state this, and Gina's heard this, that it's been an unexpected journey.
Mhm.
I I came from a large local, national, international organization to work with two people dealing with homeless issues. I said, I'll give it 2 years. And it's been, Gina, you're still ahead of me, but we're clocking 30 soon.
God.
And,
Is that why
but
we
Mike,
look like this now, you guys?
exactly. But Mike, I felt like I've carried the torch that began with you. And it's carried by leaders like Gina, and it's into new things and new opportunities. And like I said earlier, every day is a new day within HomeAid. Projects are new. There's new opportunities. There's challenges with the government and just local communities and the building industry. But HomeAid has been consistent. As we look to close our time, I'd like both of you to think about either one moment or a project or a person that really captured the heart of HomeAid for you. And, I've shared this story before. I'll start with on my end and then it gives you to think about the moment, the project, or a person. The person for me was a trade. It was a domestic violence shelter that was being built when I was with HomeAid Orange County. And there was a gentleman out front of the house finishing the concrete of a sidewalk. And I walked up to him, I get out of my car and walked up to him. I was not wearing a tie, but walked up to him and said, "Do you know what you're doing?" And he was offended because he looked at me like, "You're an idiot. Of course I know what I'm doing." I said, "No, no, 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 no. This project, do you know what this project's about?" And I went on to describe this domestic violence shelter. And he paused and he looked at me and he said, "I get to go home and tell my wife that I did something of value today." Powerful. I mean, that was years ago and it still brings, tears to my eyes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that is the beauty and the heart of what we do.
Yeah,
Changed his life. Every woman, child that to this day
yeah.
walks up to that door, crosses that threshold, walk over his concrete. So, Gina, what about you? What's a moment, a project, or a person that captures the heart of HomeAid for you?
Well, it's a moment at a project about a person. How's that, Scott?
Yep.
So it is the day we opened the family care center. And I was exhausted. We were all exhausted because we'd had this gigantic opening. We rushed to start getting it ready for the families that would come into it. And when I went and sat in my car after the first family came in that night and we opened, I could see them sitting in the dining room through the storefront doors. And they were playing Jenga. And I thought, this is why we did this. And this is worth every tear, every scream, every scratch. And ironically, so that was nearly 10 years ago, that family lives at La Vita Village. And I have followed that family and watched their journey. And knowing that we had an emergency shelter that they could land in that has now gotten to a place of affordability is the beauty of what HomeAid does. We provide home. That's it.
Amen.
Mike, what about you?
I have 5 of them, but I'm only
No,
gonna
no,
share.
no. One.
I know. So I'm gonna pick Mary's Shelter. When we were, doing that one, I remember we went to visit them, and we would do this once in a while. We would say, "You have this, this, this in place." I don't know how long it is today. We had a 28-page application. And the first vetting was, do you finish the application? But there were some weak spots in their board development, a little financial stuff. They come back when you're ready, maybe 6 months. No. So they came back. And I remember the executive director, Paul, I forget his name. He did 100-mile walk in the Sahara to raise money for this project. His toes busted out the end of his shoes. I mean, it was nuts. Jeff Slavin and Irvine Community Builders, they were the builder captain, and I met Jeff over there, and I had vetted it and went and talked to him and met with him and his team. But he came over one day, and they're all standing out there, 4 or 5 board members, some people, and then, of course, the girls were in the house. And these are girls 12, 13, 14, and pregnant. And so I took Jeff in, and we met the girls, and he talked with them each, and then we went outside, and he said, let's walk, Mike. And so we walked around the existing building. All these people are standing over waiting for what's going to happen. We get halfway around, and he said, Mike, he said, my sons are 12 and 14. These could be my kids. These are babies with babies. We have to do this project. And I said, okay. So we kept walking around the building. So we get around the building and everybody's watching and waiting. What's he going to say? Yes or no, whatever. So we went over there, and he met with, the chairman of the board and the executive director. And so, and he said, we're going to do this project. And we didn't do just that project. We did a 4,500 square foot new facility and then a 2,600 square foot building for some of the girls that needed a place to stay because they didn't get reunified with their families. And so six girls could stay in this place for like 12 months or something, kind of like us, Teresa. But, that kind of thing that was it was such a common experience. And I had the same experience recently when I got to go to Orange County, be part of the Levita celebration and ribbon cutting. Anybody that's not involved in some other nonprofit organization should support HomeAid,
Well,
period.
well, thank you, Mike. As we come to a close, HomeAid has always been, it's a story about people, builders, volunteers, partners, our donors, the service providers, and most importantly, those individuals and families who now find stability, safety, and hope with what we build. Mike, thank you for your vision, 37 years ago, for your leadership, the seeds that you planted in 1989 that continue to grow today. Gina, thank you for carrying on the mission with your strength, your compassion, and integrity. And thank you to everyone who's listening and for walking with us into the next chapter of HomeAid's work, building a future without homelessness. One project, one partnership, and one life at a time. As we close out 2025, we celebrate 36 years of building dignity, connection, and home. And as we look ahead, we do so with gratitude for those who have built the foundation and the excitement for the future that we're prepared to create together. This has been Unsheltered Conversations. I'm Scott Larson. We'll see you in the new year.